I thought that the way to go was I'm going to go work at a news station, or I'm going to go work for ESPN, or I'm going to do. Turns out that the thing that kept me in, the idea that if I could, more claims I can close per day, the more money I'm going to make, was like, oh, okay, I'm all in on this for sure.
The object of the game isn't to win, it's to stay in the game.
Adjuster TV is brought to you by Xactware Training, the creators of Xactimate X1 and Xactimate Mobile. Xactimate is the most advanced and widely used estimating platform in the insurance and restoration industries. Get certified as an Xactimate expert right now in the link in the description below. So tell me about your first storm, man.
You feel like you're live? No, I want to ask you a question
Okay,
instead.
all right. Ask
So
me a question.
it has always fascinated me, Matt, is what made somebody become an adjuster, specifically a cat adjuster.
Yeah.
So what made you become a cat adjuster?
Well, so the answer to that question is pretty straightforward, and I think it's kind of echoed across the experience of a lot of other adjusters, and that was, I had things that I liked to do for hobbies or for fun, mainly like video production and music stuff, right? So I play the guitar but I had to, when I was in my 20s, in particular, I felt that I had to have a job, and I wanted to always try and get a job in video. So after I got my college degree in radio and television production, I thought that the way to go was now I'm going to go work at a news station, or I'm going to go work for ESPN, or I'm going to do that kind of stuff, right? And I did those kinds of things. And I discovered that it didn't quite scratch the itch that I wanted it to, because although I learned a lot and the experiences were incredibly valuable, I didn't have any creative control especially at that level. And the people that did have the creative control it was corporate, more or less, right? So they were going to be,
Right.
It wasn't like, it didn't go the direction that I thought I wanted to go, right? But I enjoyed it, and I did it, for a long time, for 6 or 7 years, I think. And then my sister, who was living in Nashville at the time, she was friends with this girl named Tiffany and this guy named Dale. And she credits herself with getting them together and they're married now. They have, kids and stuff. But turns out that was Dale Brassfield, who is currently the president of Pacesetter Claim Service. And so she was always, like, the guy that she was dating at the time, not to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but the guy that she was dating at the time was really, really interested in what Dale did, because Dale was an adjuster. And Dale went out on these hailstorms all summer long. And Dale is a singer-songwriter, and he's really, really good. He's performed at their claims conference in the past. And I'm like, the number one resource for damage identification books, trainings, and certifications is Hague Education. Not only that, but they provide building inspection and desk adjuster trainings and certifications for those as well. Get a discount on all books, tools, certifications, and other trainings with code AdjusterTV at checkout at hagueeducation.com. Holy smokes, he's a good performer, plays guitar, sings, and he's got a great voice and everything. So what he did was he ran hail claims all summer long. I think his dad ran Pacesetter at the time. And then in the wintertime, when it was not storm season, he played gigs and did stuff around Nashville, right? Basically. And Sarah kind of ran in that crowd. And I was like, that sounds perfect.
Right.
That's exactly what I think that I want to do. And her boyfriend at the time, this guy named John, super good guy, did claims for a really long time. He and his brothers and his dad and me were all like, let's get into this and do this. And so what do you have to do? Well, you have to get on Worley's roster, and you have to be sponsored by an IA firm. In this case, we ended up being Worley, to go to Vail Training Solutions, which at that time was called Vail National.
Uh-huh.
And so we did that. And then...
and that was like a 3-week course.
Yeah, it was long.
Something
course.
like that, right?
Yep. It's pretty comprehensive.
Your own expense for hotels and all of the rest of that stuff, yeah.
So back in those days, we got this fun little mom and pops. It's in Mechanicsburg, PA, where they have like multiple locations or whatever. That's the one we went to, and we stayed at this little mom and pops hotel. It was $23 a night, right? And this is like a motel like you see in the movies with like you pull up to there's a door and everything.
Right.
And so the thing that really motivated me to want to do this kind of work was that I thought that I could finance the fun things that I like to do, the hobby stuff, the creative things, with this insurance claims work, which turned out to be mostly true. But because I would get so busy with the claims work, a lot of times the video stuff didn't really happen as much as I wanted it to. But it turns out that the thing that kept me in was the idea that if I could be incrementally better, always finding a way to improve my efficiency, my workflow, my customer service skills, my appearance, right? How I dressed as an adjuster, instead of just wearing like old beat up storm shirt that's faded and I've been wearing it for 4 seasons, I started wearing long sleeve shirts. And if it was cool outside, I put a cardigan on and like, nice khaki pants. I tried to keep that stuff clean so that I looked a little bit better, shaved and all that kind of stuff. I discovered that I could basically give myself a raise on my next paycheck, right? Which blew my mind, right? When that first thought clicked into my head about that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm all in on this for sure. Because the more I can close, the more claims I can close per day, the more money I'm going to make, and the more I'm going to get out of a deployment. If I got to go to the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, I like middle of nowhere, Nebraska, but I don't live there, and I want to maximize the time that I spend in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and then go home with as much money as possible to make it worth it, to do it, right? So your expenses, and this is where it kind of goes off into the more rabbit holes, but your expenses basically stay the same, right? But the more money you make, the less they're a factor, right? So it's like your groceries basically stay the same, ish within, we'll say a few $100. If you make $25,000 a year, or you make $2.5 million a year, right? There's only so much food you can eat. So if somebody who makes that much money doesn't care about what their grocery bill is, because it's such a small percentage of their overall expense. Whereas if it's you don't make as much money, you're just starting out for whatever reason, then it's a major factor in your coupon clipping and everything else. So
finding the $23 motel.
And finding a $23 a night motel, yeah, with
yeah,
the guy's sister and her kids and whoever, they're the ones cleaning the rooms and all that stuff. So the long story short on that, the motivation became, it started off as, hey, I don't have to work the whole year, and I can make more money than I can make, way more money than I can make doing TV stuff, at least at the level that I was at. And then I can have the rest of the year to kind of pursue my own stuff, travel, visit family and friends and stuff like that. And then it turned into, from there, it was the motivation that I had a lot of incentive to be absolutely as efficient as possible. And that became like a big challenge and a big like driver for how I kind of ran claims. And, then you get into the industry and you start to get to know people and you start building relationships. And then it's like, I kind of want to see these people every summer, and I want to go and, work on the storm with this guy and all that kind of stuff. So it got its arms around me, and then I was kind of locked in, and it gets in your blood. You hear people say that, once you get past that first hump, the nightmare, it's kind of dreamy after that. And it's not like it's always hard, right? There came a point in my career where I looked up and said, I don't think I've been surprised, had a new novel situation happen to me in the last 12 months, right? Where I walk up on some roof and I'm like, what in the world is that thing? I don't even know what that is. I got to look it up.
Right.
Or I'm like trying to figure out a repair for something. There wasn't any more surprises. I pretty much knew, or thought I knew, like everything. And occasionally you go to a different part of the country where they do construction a little bit differently, maybe. It's pretty uniform across the entire country, but you got regional variations.
Stucco in the Southwest versus vinyl, and
and then you got like tile, but
they all have framework underneath them, and
it's all balloon framing and whatever. So, then it was, I don't know, I just kept getting into it deeper and deeper, and because I felt as though I was getting pretty good at the work, especially having that like space between the stimulus and you're not reacting, you're responding to situations where that could escalate, and that immediately that became a challenge, right? Like this guy is going to be a complete. I have my assistant making calls, and sometimes the insureds were rude to the assistant for I don't know what reason.
Right.
They just thought, well, it's an insurance company calling, and I can, I demand this and blah blah blah, right? Challenge accepted. I'm going to make that guy smile and offer me a beer before I leave his house. I'm not going to take it,
But he's going to offer it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that became a challenge. So I really wanted to work on my customer service skills. I wanted to work on my customer skills to the point, and I got there to where I'm getting 100s even on denials on my customer service rating.
Right.
And I managed to do that. I was, for a brief time, I think like a month, when I was working at a major carrier, I was the only claims person in the entire country in that company that had 100% customer service rating, including denials and on denials. And of course, I got phone calls and meetings and whatever. How are you doing this? I'm like, what I just told you just now is what I told them. It's
right.
Like,
Right.
So that's, long story short, that's the motivation.
We can make these really long stories. So,
yes. Are you ready to help people recover from natural disasters? Learn how to get started as an adjuster in this next video right here.